Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kris. This is Rome's last stand in Egypt. Battle of, I just said it, Heliopolis. Heliopolis? Is that what he said? Heliopolis? Heliopolis? Yeah, it's one of them. 640 AD, Arab conquest of Egypt. My elbow popped. Before we get started, you can click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like. Thumbs up, please. Subscribe. Optional, but I'd like you if you did. You can also donate to the channel through the thanks button. This was a requested video. They just didn't donate, so they don't get that extra shout out. But if you want to donate and request a video, your name's sponsoring that video. It's my thank you for that. All right, now let's get into the video.
The campaigning season was nearly over, so the Muslim commander marched back to Upper Egypt. He chose as his base the city of Busiris and proceeded to fortify the place. On 11th of February AD 641, the aging emperor Heraclius died. He had intended that both of his sons should rule together, with his surviving wife, Empress Martina, also having a share in power. However, the younger son, Heraclonus, and his mother Martina were sidelined by the court and senate to make Heraclius Constantine III, the elder son of Heraclius by his late first wife, Eudokia, the senior emperor. Despite being terminally ill with tuberculosis, Constantine III sprang into action to try and rescue the situation in Egypt. He summoned Cyrus, the Patriarch of Alexandria, and Theodore, the Magister Militum, so they could appraise him of the situation there. Meanwhile, the attention of the Muslims was directed towards consolidating their gains. This respite allowed Theodore the opportunity to answer the emperor's summons. He left Dux Anastasius in command of what remained of Roman Egypt, while he and Cyrus journeyed to the emperor to solicit more imperial support and instructions. Determinedly, Constantine promised that he would send an army in the autumn. Finally, the bond between the imperial government and the leadership of Egypt was re-established. Unfortunately, the death of the sick emperor in May AD 641, after only 3 months on the throne, meant that all of these preparations amounted to nothing. He was succeeded by his brother Heraclonus, with his mother Martina acting as regent. She became de facto ruler of the Eastern Roman Empire. Knowing that they lacked the support of the court and senate, upon meeting Cyrus, Theodore, and other high-ranking officials from Egypt, Martina offered them unprecedented powers in exchange for their support. But the attempt backfired. Many were uneasy about Heraclonus becoming emperor because of the consanguinity of the marriage of Heraclius and Martina, as she was Heraclius's niece. Moreover, false rumors spread that Constantine III had been poisoned by her, which further harmed her reputation. Matters came to a head when the general Valentine ousted Heraclonus and replaced him with the eldest son of Constantine III. He sent word to both Patriarch Cyrus and the Magister Militum Theodore, asking them not to intervene in his coup, nor to recognize the rule of Heraclonus. Neither of the Egyptian leaders had much love for the interloper emperor and promptly returned to Egypt, leaving Valentine to act unimpeded. Thus, facing little opposition, Valentine installed the son of Constantine III to the throne, who would become known to history as Constans II. The political turmoil proved detrimental for the Roman war effort in Egypt. With no pushback coming from the Nile Delta, Amr ibn al-Asi spent the rest of the year finishing off Roman resistance in Upper Egypt. Roman forces, cut off from the Nile Delta, concentrated in Antinoe. Holding out courageously under siege, they defended the city and citadel to the last man. By the end of AD 641, the last Roman holdout in Upper Egypt, was lost. Next spring, Amr ibn al-Asi renewed his offensive. He built a road from Babylon to Sebennytus to improve the ferrying of supplies and siege weapons. Once there, the Muslims set the city ablaze using incendiaries, forcing the Roman garrison to abandon the inferno. In May, the besieged fortress of Babylon and its remaining garrison surrendered. On Easter Monday AD 642, the city was lost to the invaders. The fall of Babylon and the destruction of Sebennytus were calamitous for the Roman defense of Egypt. The city of Nikiu was now the last formidable stronghold left before the Muslims could attack Alexandria itself. Unfortunately for the Romans, Domitianus was in charge of the city's defense. Much like his poor showing at Aboit the year before, at Nikiu, Domitianus again lost his nerve and fled on a ship to Alexandria. This was a grievous blow to the morale of the Roman army, who, after witnessing their leader's flight, also fled in disarray.
Did they not learn anything from the first time? So they put him in charge a second time and thought, no. He's definitely going to lead them to victory. No, he's not. That man right there is on a boat looking for the first McDonald's he can see.
But the retreat went horribly. The Muslims simply charged into the mass of Romans trying to swim across the Nile and butchered all but one of them. The city of Nikiu was sacked soon after. The situation was bleak. Once Cyrus and Theodore returned from their trip to Constantinople, they found the Roman position in Egypt to be on the verge of collapse. The Romans were only saved by the closure of the campaigning season of AD 642. Finger-pointing and violent infighting now plagued the Egyptian high command. In this poisonous environment, by the time Theodore re-established a loyal chain of command, Roman forces had been pushed back to the suburbs of Alexandria. Unable to further resist the Arabs, Patriarch Cyrus traveled to Babylon to meet with Amr ibn al-Asi. They agreed to an armistice. The Romano-Egyptians were to pay a tribute. There was to be a ceasefire for 11 months, while the Roman army evacuated Alexandria without hindrance. No other Roman army was to enter Egypt during the ceasefire. The Muslims were to stay out of church affairs. The Jews in Alexandria were not to be harmed, and the Muslims would cease attacking the Egyptians. These were the terms for the surrender of Alexandria and the rest of Roman Egypt. Amr ibn al-Asi agreed, as did Theodore and the other civil, public, and ecclesiastic Roman authorities of Alexandria. In November AD 642, the withdrawal of the Roman army from Egypt began. By September AD 643, the handover of Alexandria was completed, with Amr ibn al-Asi entering the city to install his own governor, an Egyptian called John. This act formally ended 674 years of continuous Roman rule in Egypt. But the winds changed once again. On the 7th of November AD 644, Caliph Umar was assassinated, causing internal instability in the caliphate. In Egypt, unrest grew amongst the population as the inhabitants had paid the price for their freedom from religious persecution, with their taxes being tripled to help fuel the caliphate's war efforts. Furthermore, Amr ibn al-Asi was replaced and a new governor was sent by the Caliph Uthman, whose task was to increase taxes still further. It was in these circumstances of unrest and instability where Emperor Constans II saw a chance to regain the jewel of the Roman Empire. A casus belli was found when the Alexandrians sent letters to the emperor begging him for help. The city was held by a small garrison of 1,000 men. Constans II assembled a fleet of 300 ships and an army to retake Egypt. Manuel, an Armenian eunuch, was appointed commander of the expeditionary force.
How long after that armistice was this? Was this the next year? Was this... Because I know they had 11 months to get out. So they got out in 11 months. So was this like the next year? I mean, this is like months after that armistice. Jeez.
He was likely chosen because of his unquestionable loyalty to the emperor. In late AD 645, the Romans landed and defeated the Muslim garrison. Alexandria was back in Roman hands. Manuel led his forces out and quickly reconquered the mouth of the delta. Ports along the coast were recaptured, and a signal system was set up on the watchtowers to help defend the area. Preparations were made for a march up the river to continue the reconquest of Egypt. Without competent leadership on the Muslim side, there was nothing stopping Manuel from reaching Middle Egypt to recapture Babylon and topple the Arab government there. Furthermore, the presence of the Roman expeditionary force opened the way for more reinforcements. There was a real fear that if Roman hegemony was restored, the rest of Egypt would rebel against Arab rule. In early AD 646, on the urging of the Muslim leadership in Egypt, the Caliph reinstated the recently sacked Amr ibn al-Asi to command the armies and drive out the Roman expeditionary force. Amr ibn al-Asi made Babylon his headquarters. Wasting little time, he marched on Alexandria with an army of 15,000. Meanwhile, Manuel advanced south to retake the city of Nikiu with a force of similar size. The two armies faced off against each other under the walls of Nikiu, next to the banks of the Nile. The Romans assembled their forces in the usual fashion and began skirmishing, showering the Arabs with arrows for an hour. Then the two armies advanced against each other. The sun shone high in the Egyptian winter sky. The sound of water flowing and sloshing against the side of wooden ships shrank into insignificance as the Romans advanced with a thunder of hobnailed boots thumping against the silty soil of the green banks of the Nile. The two lines charged into each other. Swords struck down their foes, axes buried into soft flesh, shields smacked away the deadly thrusts of spears. Shouts of the wounded, cries of Christ the Victor rang forth, and were met by the frenzied shrieks of God is great. In this melee of religions and empires, the fate of Egypt was being decided. In the thick of combat, the horse of Amr ibn al-Asi was struck by an arrow and died. The Muslim commander continued to fight on foot. Through valor and strength of arms, one of the Roman wings managed to break the Arab formation and put them to rout. But elsewhere, the Romans, for all of their tenacity and exertions, were unable to break the zeal of their enemy. In another part of the battle, a mounted Roman officer rode forth and issued a challenge to his Muslim counterpart, Hahumal of Zabid, who took up the challenge. They charged each other on their horses, spears leveled at each other. Failing to strike down his opponent, the Roman officer drew his sword, as did Hahumal. As this duel went on, some of the soldiers watched and cheered on their respective champion. The duel went on for a time, when at last Mal parried a thrust by the Roman officer, and with a riposte cut deep into his opponent's collarbone. The Roman officer fell down dead. However, the victory was short-lived, for Mal was covered in wounds inflicted by the Roman officer. Exhausted, he breathed his last and fell to the ground moments afterwards. The battle continued to rage, but eventually the strength of Roman arms gave way, and by that evening the field belonged to the Arabs. Retreating to Alexandria in disorder, Manuel and his army fortified the city, erecting mangonels for a siege. After regrouping, Amr ibn al-Asi advanced on the Egyptian capital, vowing to raze its walls to the ground. In the subsequent fighting, much of Alexandria was destroyed by a massive fire. The Romans held on, but were eventually forced to retreat to their ships and sail away.
Didn't they say that, and this may be unrelated, but like the Library of Alexander that held all this knowledge, wasn't there a fire that destroyed that? And they said it set civilization back thousands of years. Stupid question. Was the battle because of that fire? I don't know. I'm sure I've heard it before, but I have no idea. I don't even remember anymore. Was that because of this? Am I about to find out? I don't know.
Constans II's attempt to recover Egypt had failed. The loss of Roman Egypt was a significant blow to the Eastern Roman Empire. The loss of its huge grain supply meant that the grain doll, which had been issued in Constantinople since the 4th century, a practice that itself went back to the days of the Roman Republic, finally ceased. Furthermore, the loss of Egypt opened Libya and the rest of North Africa to Arab conquest. Carthage, the capital of Roman North Africa, was later lost in AD 698.
That's where my descendants are from.
In subsequent centuries, the Romans...
It's my North African descendants right there. That's where I'm from.
Romans occasionally sent raids to sack Alexandria and plunder the Egyptian coastline. Another 500 years would pass until the reign of Manuel I Komnenos in the 12th century, when the Romans once again attempted to reconquer Egypt with their Crusader allies. But that is a story for another time.
Yeah.
Big thanks to
All right. That was good. Oh, Warhawks. Warhawks must have been in on this one. He's just a stupid dog. Okay. Well, that was good. That was good. Christians says almost covered by tax for non-Muslims. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So the Christians who stayed in the Muslim land, they were taxed for because they refused to convert. So when they were taxing, raising the taxes on the Muslims were raising the taxes on the people. It was the Christians who had refused to convert that were probably the ones paying the big price. Makes sense. Because I know before that they had, when they would conquer areas, not all the Muslim leaders, but when they would conquer areas, they would pretty much take the spoils and give them to the people. So, which makes sense. You want to win the people over. And the people, who aren't fighting, they probably don't care who their government is. Just let them live. As long as they can live and they can farm and they can continue their day-to-day life, they probably don't care. Unless you have some kind of skin in the game. You just want to be left alone. Makes sense. All right, well, we're going to end this video here. Hope you enjoyed. I apologize for taking so long to do this. I actually just completely forgot about it. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night.